The Lincoln Tunnel at rush hour is nobody's idea of a good time. But when you see a $500,000 McLaren burst into flames right in the middle of it, well, that's when things get interesting. The smoke was already thick enough to choke on when Marcus Chen pulled his beat-up Ford F-150 to a stop. His 8-year-old daughter Emma pressed against the window in the back seat. "Daddy, there's someone in there." She was right. Through the flames licking at the carbon fiber body, he could see a figure pounding against the driver's side window. The electronic locks had failed, trapping whoever was inside like a mouse in a burning cage. The other drivers were backing away, some filming with their phones, others shouting for someone to do something. But nobody moved. Marcus had exactly 3 seconds to make a decision, 3 seconds to weigh the risk against the life burning away in front of him. He thought of Sarah, his late wife, how she'd always said he had a hero complex. Then he thought of Emma, who'd already lost one parent. "Stay in the truck, Em. Lock the doors." "Daddy, no!" But he was already running. The heat hit him like a physical wall, searing his lungs with every breath. The designer suit behind the glass belonged to a woman, her face a mask of controlled terror as she pulled desperately at the door handle. Their eyes met for a split second, ice blue meeting warm brown. And in that moment, he saw something beyond fear. He saw resignation. She'd accepted she was going to die, like hell she was. Marcus grabbed the emergency hammer from a nearby taxi. Every New York cabbie kept one after that tunnel flood years back and swung hard at the reinforced glass. Nothing? He swung again, putting his whole body into it. The glass spiderwebbed, but held. "The corner!" someone shouted. "Hit the corner!" The flames were spreading to the interior now. He could see the woman's platinum blonde hair starting to curl from the heat. One more swing at the bottom corner, and the glass finally shattered, thousands of tiny cubes cascading like diamonds. Marcus reached through, ignoring the cuts on his arms, and grabbed the woman under her shoulders. "Push with your legs!" he shouted over the roar of the flames. She nodded, understanding immediately, and together they got her through the window just as the first explosion rocked the tunnel. Marcus threw them both to the ground, covering her body with his as chunks of burning carbon fiber rained down around them. The second explosion was bigger, lifting the McLaren off its wheels and slamming it back down in a shower of sparks. When the chaos settled, Marcus found himself lying on top of one of the most powerful women in New York, her Armani suit ruined, her perfect composure shattered, and tears streaming down her face. "You okay?" he asked, rolling off her. She nodded, unable to speak. Her hands were shaking violently, and he noticed a gash on her palm, probably from the broken glass. Without thinking, he pulled off his flannel shirt and wrapped it around her hand, leaving himself in just a grease-stained t-shirt that had seen better days. "Marcus!" Emma's voice cut through the smoke. She'd gotten out of the truck despite his orders, running toward them with tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, you're bleeding." He looked down at his arms, noticing the cuts for the first time. "It's okay, baby, just scratches." Emma threw her arms around him, and he held her tight, feeling her small body shake with sobs. When he looked up, the woman was watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. Loss, longing, or maybe just shock. "Thank you," she finally managed, her voice hoarse from the smoke. "You saved my life." "Anyone would have—" "No." She cut him off, her CEO voice returning despite the circumstances. "They wouldn't have. They didn't." The emergency responders were finally arriving, firefighters and paramedics swarming the scene. One of them started checking the woman over, while another looked at Marcus's arms. Emma refused to let go of his hand. "I need to repay you," the woman said, as a paramedic wrapped a proper bandage around her hand. Marcus shook his head. "Just glad you're okay." "Please, I'm Victoria Sterling, Sterling Tech. Let me—" "I know who you are," Marcus said quietly. And he did. Everyone knew Victoria Sterling, the ice queen of the tech world, the youngest female CEO in Fortune 500 history, the woman who'd turned her father's failing company into a billion-dollar empire, the woman who, according to the tabloids, had no heart. But lying there on the tunnel floor, with soot on her face and his blood on her designer suit, she looked nothing like the magazine covers. She looked human, vulnerable, And something in her eyes when she watched him hold Emma spoke of a loneliness that all the money in the world couldn't fill. "Then you know I don't take no for an answer," Victoria said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Daddy fixes everything," Emma suddenly announced, her voice small but certain. "He fixed Mommy's car, and he fixed my bike, and he fixed Mr. Johnson's truck. He can fix anything." Victoria Sterling looked at the little girl with her father's eyes and her mother's curls, then at Marcus with his grease-stained shirt and bleeding arms, this man who'd risked everything to pull a stranger from a burning car. "I believe you're right," she said softly. "He certainly fixed my problem today." Brooklyn at 5 in the morning has its own kind of beauty. The streets are quiet except for the rumble of delivery trucks and the distant clatter of the subway. Marcus Chen had been awake since 4:30, same as every day for the past 2 years, not because he had to be, but because the empty bed beside him felt too big in the darkness, and staying there meant remembering Sarah's warmth that would never return. The coffee maker gurgled in the corner of the small kitchen above Chen's auto repair, filling the space with the only warmth it had known since she'd gone. The apartment wasn't much: 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a living room that doubled as Emma's art studio, her drawings covering every available surface. Pictures of butterflies and rainbows, of houses with smoke curling from chimneys, and always, always pictures of a woman with dark hair and a sunshine smile. "Mommy in heaven," Emma would say, fixing the angel's wings. Marcus stood at the window, watching the sun paint the Brooklyn Bridge gold, and tried not to think about the bills stacked on the kitchen table. $23,000 in remaining medical debt, $800 in rent due next week, $300 for Emma's school supplies. The numbers ran through his head like a broken calculator, always adding up to more than the $1,400 he'd made last week. "Daddy?" Emma stood in the doorway, clutching Mr. Patches, the teddy bear Sarah had given her for her 4th birthday. 4 years old. That's all the time she'd had with her mother before the cancer took her. Now, at 8, Emma's memories of Sarah were fading like old photographs, held together by Marcus's stories and her own desperate imagination. "Morning, princess. You're up early." "I had the dream again." Marcus's chest tightened. The dream where Mommy came back, where she wasn't sick anymore, where they were a family again. He opened his arms and Emma ran into them, burying her face in his chest. "Want to talk about it?" "She was teaching me to make pancakes, the special ones with the smiley faces." Sarah's signature move. She'd use chocolate chips for the eyes and a strip of bacon for the smile. Marcus had tried to recreate them, but they never came out quite right. The eyes were always crooked, the smile more like a grimace. "How about we try making them together this morning?" Emma nodded against his chest. They moved to the kitchen, working in the comfortable silence that had become their language. Marcus had learned that sometimes Emma didn't need words, just presence. Just the knowledge that Daddy was there, that he wasn't going anywhere. The pancakes were a disaster. The first one burned, the second stuck to the pan. The third looked more like a crime scene than a smiley face. But Emma laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks, and that sound was worth all the failed pancakes in the world. "Daddy, why don't you ever go on dates?" The question caught him mid-flip, and the pancake landed half on the plate, half on the counter. "What brought that on?" "Jesse's dad has a girlfriend. She's nice. She brought Jesse new hair ribbons." Marcus looked at his daughter, really looked at her. Her hair was getting long, needing a proper cut, not the hack job he'd attempted last month. Her clothes were clean but worn, hand-me-downs from the church donation box that she wore without complaint. She deserved hair ribbons. She deserved so much more than he could give her. "I don't need to go on dates. I've got you." "But don't you get lonely?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "Yes," he wanted to say. "Every night when you're asleep and the apartment is quiet and I can hear the couple upstairs laughing at their TV shows. Every morning when I reach for Sarah and find cold sheets. Every school event when the other kids have 2 parents cheering them on." "Sometimes," he admitted. "But being lonely isn't the worst thing." "What is?" "Forgetting." Emma was quiet for a moment, then reached across the table and took his rough, calloused hand in her small one. "I won't let you forget Mommy. And I won't let you forget her either." They finished breakfast and Marcus walked Emma to PS 282, holding her hand at every crosswalk, even though she insisted she was big enough to cross alone. The other parents barely noticed them anymore. Marcus in his oil-stained coveralls, Emma in her second-hand uniform. They were part of the landscape now, as invisible as the cracked sidewalks and graffitied walls. "Love you, Em," he said at the school gate. "Love you more," she replied, their daily ritual. "Love you most." She smiled and ran inside, and Marcus walked back to the garage alone. Chen's auto repair had been his father's before him, and his grandfather's before that. 3 generations of Chens fixing cars in the same narrow building, squeezed between a bodega and a check-cashing place. The sign out front needed repainting. The lift in Bay 2 only worked if you kicked it just right. The office computer was held together with duct tape and prayer. But it was his. The one thing cancer couldn't take, bankruptcy couldn't touch. As long as he could turn a wrench, he could keep the lights on. Barely. "Yo, Marcus!" Jerome Washington, Vietnam vet and neighborhood fixture, wheeled himself over from the bodega. He'd lost his legs to a landmine in '71 and his faith in the system shortly after, but he'd never lost his ability to spot a man in pain. Another late night? Marcus nodded, already sliding under Mrs. Rodriguez's Honda. She needed new brake pads, but could only afford to have them adjusted. He'd do the adjusting for free and pray they lasted until her next Social Security check. "You can't keep running on fumes, brother." "I'm fine." That's what Sarah used to say. Marcus's wrench slipped, skinning his knuckles. "Don't." "Someone's gotta. You're killing yourself trying to be both parents. Emma needs a father, not a ghost. She needs food on the table and a roof over her head. She needs you present, really present, not just going through the motions." Marcus slid out from under the car, wiping blood from his knuckles. "You got kids, Jerome?" "No." "Then respectfully, you don't know what you're talking about." Jerome wheeled closer. "I know pain when I see it. I know a man drowning on dry land. Sarah wouldn't want this." "Sarah's not here." The words exploded out of him, echoing in the empty garage. "She's not here to want anything. She's not here to help with homework or braid Emma's hair or tell me everything's going to be okay. She's gone, Jerome, and I'm all Emma's got." The old vet was quiet for a long moment. Then, "No, son, Emma's all you've got. There's a difference." He wheeled away, leaving Marcus alone with his skinned knuckles and the truth that cut deeper than any wrench slip. Because Jerome was right. Somewhere in the past 2 years, he'd confused surviving with living, endurance with love. He was keeping Emma fed and sheltered, but was he really being her father? Or was he just another broken thing in need of fixing, too stubborn or too scared to admit it? The day wore on. Cars came and went. Marcus fixed what he could, patched what he couldn't, and tried not to think about Jerome's words. But when 3 o'clock came and Emma burst through the door with her backpack bouncing and her face bright with the day's adventures, he forced himself to really see her, really listen. "Daddy, guess what? We learned about butterflies today. Did you know they can't see their own wings? They never know how beautiful they are." Marcus pulled her close, breathing in the scent of school supplies and playground dust. "Is that right?" "Uh-huh. Kinda sad, isn't it? Being beautiful and never knowing." Looking down at his daughter, this miracle Sarah had left behind, Marcus thought maybe they were all butterflies in their own way, too close to their own lives to see the beauty in them, too wrapped up in survival to remember what they were surviving for. "Yeah, baby," he said softly. "It is kind of sad. But maybe, just maybe, that could change." 3 days after the Lincoln Tunnel incident, Victoria Sterling stood outside Chen's Auto Repair in a $10,000 Chanel suit, looking as out of place as a swan in a junkyard. Her driver had argued against coming to this part of Brooklyn. Her security team had insisted on a full detail, and her lawyers had recommended sending a representative instead. But Victoria hadn't built Sterling Tech by letting other people handle what mattered, and somehow, inexplicably, this mattered. The garage door was open, revealing a space that had seen better decades. Tools hung on pegboard walls like ancient artifacts. The concrete floor was stained with the history of 1,000 oil changes, and somewhere in the back, a radio played classic rock between bursts of static. She could see legs sticking out from under a Toyota Camry, worn work boots that had walked too many miles. "Be right with you," Marcus's voice called out, muffled by the car above him. Victoria waited, unconsciously touching the bandage still on her palm. The cuts were healing, but she'd kept the bandage longer than necessary. It reminded her of that moment in the tunnel when a stranger's blood had mixed with hers, when someone had risked everything expecting nothing in return. "Sorry about the wait." Marcus stopped mid-sentence as he rolled out from under the car, his eyes widening at the sight of her. He was wearing the same type of grease-stained t-shirt she remembered, and there were fresh cuts on his arms from today's work, layered over the healing ones from saving her. "Ms. Sterling." "Victoria, please." He got to his feet slowly, wiping his hands on a rag that only seemed to spread the grease around. "If you're here about your car insurance claim, I already told them everything. I'm not here about insurance." They stood there, the space between them filled with the smell of motor oil and the weight of unspoken questions. Victoria noticed things she'd missed in the chaos of their first meeting, the way his shoulders carried exhaustion like a permanent resident, the silver threading through his black hair, though he couldn't be more than 40, the careful way he moved like someone who'd learned not to waste energy on unnecessary motions. "Then why—" The screech of tires interrupted him. A black SUV roared around the corner, windows rolling down, and Victoria had just enough time to recognize the threat before Marcus grabbed her, pulling her behind a tool cabinet as bullets sprayed the garage entrance. Glass shattered, metal sparked, and for the second time in a week, Victoria Sterling found herself pressed against Marcus Chen, while violence exploded around them. "Stay down!" he shouted, shielding her with his body. The attack lasted maybe 30 seconds, but time stretched like taffy in a panic. Victoria could feel Marcus's heart racing against her back, could smell sawdust and sweat, and something indefinably safe about him, even as bullets destroyed his workspace. Then, as suddenly as it started, it was over. The SUV peeled away, leaving only silence and destruction. "You okay?" Marcus asked, his hands running over her arms, checking for injuries with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this before. "I'm fine. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. They were after me." "Who's they? Competition? Rivals? Take your pick." She laughed bitterly. "When you're worth $2 billion, everyone wants a piece." Marcus surveyed the damage. Shattered windows, bullet holes in the walls, his computer monitor destroyed. The picture of Emma and Sarah that sat on his desk lying in a pile of broken glass. "Daddy!" Emma's voice sent ice through Victoria's veins. The little girl stood in the doorway, having just gotten off the school bus, her eyes wide with terror at the destruction. "Emma, baby, it's okay." Marcus was across the room in 3 strides, scooping her up, checking her for injuries, even though she'd been nowhere near the violence. "What happened? Why is everything broken?" "Just some bad people, but they're gone now." Emma's eyes found Victoria, recognizing her despite the different context. "You're the lady from the tunnel, the one Daddy saved." "Yes." "Are the bad people trying to hurt you?" Victoria felt something crack in her chest at the directness of the question, the way this 8-year-old cut through all pretense. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm afraid they are." Emma wriggled out of her father's arms and walked over to Victoria, with the fearlessness of a child who still believed the world could be fixed. She reached into her Hello Kitty backpack and pulled out a slightly crushed box of Band-Aids. "These are special," Emma said solemnly. "They have superheroes on them. Daddy says superheroes protect people. Maybe they'll protect you." Victoria knelt down, her designer suit hitting the oil-stained floor, and accepted the gift with the gravity it deserved. "Thank you. That's very kind. Daddy can protect you too. He protected me when the bad men came for Mommy." Marcus's face went white. "Emma, that's not—" "They wanted money for Mommy's medicine," Emma continued, matter of fact in the way only children can be about trauma. "But Daddy didn't have enough, so they came to the garage, but Daddy made them go away." Victoria looked at Marcus, seeing new shadows in his story. Medical debt, desperation, violence. The price of love in America's healthcare system. "Emma, why don't you go upstairs and start your homework?" Marcus said quietly. "But, please, Princess." Emma nodded, but before leaving, she turned to Victoria. "You can stay for dinner if you want. Daddy always makes too much spaghetti anyway." After Emma disappeared upstairs, Marcus slumped against the workbench. "I'm sorry about that. She doesn't usually tell strangers our business." I'm not exactly a stranger anymore, and I'm the one who should apologize. They destroyed your garage because of me. It's just things. Things can be replaced. Victoria pulled out her phone. I'll have my people here in an hour. Everything will be fixed by tomorrow. No. The refusal was quiet but firm. Marcus stood straighter, and Victoria saw the pride that kept him working 16-hour days rather than taking handouts. This is my fault. No, those men made their choice. You didn't pull the trigger. He gestured at the destruction. I'll handle it. With what insurance? What money? The words came out harsher than she intended, but Victoria had spent too many years in boardrooms to not recognize impossible math. I've had my people look into you. You what? I needed to know who saved my life. Marcus Chen, former aerospace engineer for Boeing, specialized in safety systems for commercial aircraft. Graduated MIT with honors, holds 12 patents for innovative safety mechanisms. Left everything 3 years ago when your wife was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Spent everything on experimental treatments, mortgaged the garage, sold your patents. She died anyway. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. You had no right. I had every right. Someone risked their life for mine. I needed to know why. And now I know. You're a good man who's drowning in bad circumstances, too proud to ask for help even when your daughter needs it. Don't you dare bring Emma into this. She's already in it. Those bullets could have hit her. The next ones might. Victoria stepped closer, her CEO voice cutting through his anger. I have resources, security, money. Let me help. I don't need your charity. It's not charity. It's payment for services rendered. You saved my life. I already told you I don't want... A rock crashed through what was left of the front window, a note tied around it. Marcus unwrapped it carefully, his face darkening as he read. What does it say? Victoria asked. He handed it to her, written in red ink. Give us the woman or the girl pays. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Victoria watched Marcus transform, the exhausted mechanic disappearing, replaced by something harder, more dangerous. This was the man who'd run into fire, who'd fought off debt collectors, who'd held his wife's hand while she died, and then got up the next morning to make his daughter pancakes. They just threatened Emma, he said quietly, and Victoria heard death in that quiet tone. We should call the police. The police won't do anything until something happens, and I won't let anything happen to Emma. Then let my security... Your security didn't stop them from finding my garage, didn't stop them from shooting it up in broad daylight. He moved to a locked cabinet, pulling out something Victoria didn't expect to see in a Brooklyn garage, a military-grade tactical vest and a Glock 19. You served? Reserve. Did 2 tours in Afghanistan between college and Boeing. Combat engineer. Built things. Fixed things. Sometimes had to protect those things. He checked the weapon with practiced efficiency, and Victoria realized she'd been wrong about him. He wasn't just a grieving widower trying to survive. He was a warrior who'd chosen peace but remembered war. You can't fight them alone. Watch me. Marcus, please. This is my fight, my enemies. Let me handle it. He turned to her, and she saw the fear beneath the determination. They threatened my daughter. That makes it my fight. Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang. Her head of security, panic in his voice. Ma'am, we've lost contact with the detail watching the garage. And there's something else. Damian Cross was released on bail this morning. Damian Cross, her former partner who'd tried to steal Sterling Tech's revolutionary battery technology, who'd promised to destroy her when she'd had him arrested for corporate espionage, who had connections to the kind of people who shot up garages in Brooklyn. He's coming, Victoria said. This was just the warning. Marcus was already moving, calling up the stairs. Emma, pack your overnight bag. We're going on an adventure. Where are we going? Emma appeared, clutching Mr. Patches. Marcus looked at Victoria, a question and a challenge in his eyes. She understood immediately. My place, Victoria said. I have the best security in the city. Reinforced walls, bulletproof glass, a panic room. No one can touch her there. I don't hide behind walls, Marcus said. No, but Emma does, at least until we stop them. The word we hung between them, unexpected and somehow right. They were strangers thrown together by violence, as different as silk and sandpaper, but in that moment, They were united by the only thing that mattered, protecting an 8-year-old girl who still believed in superheroes and Band-Aids. Marcus knelt beside Emma. "Remember when we talked about staying with friends sometimes? Is Victoria our friend?" He looked up at Victoria, something shifting in his expression. "Yeah, baby, she is now." Emma smiled, then asked the question that would change everything. "Will you teach her our secret handshake?" Marcus hesitated, then held out his hand to Victoria. "It's very complicated. Think you can handle it?" Victoria Sterling, CEO of a Fortune 500 company who'd negotiated with presidents and princes, looked at the offered hand, rough, scarred, honest, and took it. "I can try." Or, Victoria Sterling's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a Manhattan high-rise that scraped the sky with its ambition. The private elevator opened into a space that looked more like a modern art museum than a home. White walls, minimalist furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the city into wallpaper. Emma stood frozen at the entrance, her mouth forming a perfect O. Mr. Patches clutched tight against her chest. "It's like a castle in the clouds," she whispered. Marcus felt equally out of place, his work boots leaving faint prints on marble floors that probably cost more than his annual income. But he kept his discomfort hidden, focusing on Emma's wonder rather than his own unease. "The guest wing is through here," Victoria said, leading them down a hallway lined with abstract paintings that looked like expensive mistakes to Marcus, but probably cost millions. "You'll have your own suite, 2 bedrooms, a living area, the windows are bulletproof, and there's a panic button in every room." "What's a panic button?" Emma asked. "It's like calling for help really fast," Victoria explained, kneeling to Emma's level. "But you won't need it. My security team is the best in the city. You're safe here." Emma studied Victoria with that intense focus children have when they're making important decisions about adults. "Do you live here all by yourself?" "Yes." "Don't you get lonely?" The question hung in the air like a held breath. Marcus watched Victoria's carefully constructed expression flicker, revealing something raw underneath. "Sometimes," Victoria admitted, "but I stay very busy with work." "Daddy says that too," Emma said, reaching out to touch Victoria's hand. "But I think grown-ups just say that when they're sad." "Emma," Marcus warned gently. "It's okay," Victoria said, and Marcus was surprised to see her fingers close around Emma's small hand. "She's very perceptive. Mommy said I'm an old soul. That means I understand things even when people don't say them out loud." They settled into the guest suite, which was bigger than their entire apartment in Brooklyn. Emma immediately gravitated to the window, pressing her nose against the glass to watch the city lights twinkle below. Marcus stood beside her, one hand protective on her shoulder. "Daddy, are we going to live here now?" "Just for a little while, until things are safe again." "I like Victoria. She's sad like us, but she pretends not to be." Marcus glanced at Victoria, who was standing in the doorway like she didn't know whether to come in or leave. There was something lost about her in her own home, like she was the guest and they were the residents. "Hey," he called to her. "You hungry? Emma and I were going to make dinner. I have a chef. Henri can prepare anything you'd like." "We don't need a chef," Marcus interrupted. "We just need a kitchen and some basic ingredients. Emma makes the best spaghetti sauce in Brooklyn." "I help stir," Emma announced proudly. Victoria looked between them, and Marcus saw the moment she made a decision. "I'd like to learn, if you'll teach me." The kitchen was a gleaming expanse of stainless steel and marble that had probably never seen actual cooking. Victoria admitted as much as Marcus searched through cabinets that were mostly empty except for protein bars and expensive coffee. "I usually eat at the office or have things delivered," she said, almost apologetically. "When did you last cook a meal?" Marcus asked, finding a forgotten box of pasta in the back of a pantry. I'm not sure. College, maybe?" Emma gasped dramatically. "That's forever ago." "Emma," Marcus said, but he was smiling. "We'll have to order ingredients," Victoria said, already reaching for her phone. "I can have my assistant." "Or," Marcus suggested, "we could go to the grocery store, like normal people." "I don't really do grocery stores." "You don't do a lot of things, do you?" The words came out more gently than they might have. "Come on, Emma loves picking out vegetables. It'll be fun." The 3 of them at Whole Foods was a study in contrasts. Victoria in her designer suit pushing a cart she clearly didn't know how to navigate. Marcus in his work clothes, calculating prices in his head, putting back the expensive items Victoria kept adding. Emma running between them, playing ambassador, bridging two worlds with the ease of a child who didn't know they were supposed to be separate. "We need tomatoes," Emma announced. "The round red ones, not the weird-shaped ones." "They're called heirloom tomatoes," Victoria said, holding up a particularly gnarly specimen. "They're supposed to be better." "They look like alien brains," Emma said, making a face. Marcus laughed, really laughed, and Victoria found herself staring. He was handsome when he laughed, the lines around his eyes crinkling, years falling away from his face. She'd saved financial institutions and negotiated billion-dollar deals, but she couldn't remember the last time she'd made someone laugh. "Regular tomatoes it is," she said, putting back the heirloom varieties. Back in the penthouse kitchen, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Marcus handled the knife work with the same precision he used on engines. Emma stood on a step stool, stirring the sauce with intense concentration. Victoria was assigned garlic duty, which she approached like a hostile takeover, attacking the cloves with more enthusiasm than skill. "You're murdering it," Marcus said, his hand covering hers on the knife handle. "Gentle, like this." He guided her hands, showing her how to rock the knife, how to let the weight do the work. Victoria, who commanded boardrooms and controlled billions, found herself learning from a mechanic's calloused hands. And somehow, it didn't feel like surrender. "Tell Victoria the story about the sauce," Emma prompted. Marcus's face softened. "It's my grandmother's recipe. She came from Italy with nothing but the clothes on her back and this recipe in her head. Said it was the only inheritance worth passing down." "What happened to her?" Victoria asked. "She opened a little restaurant in Brooklyn, fed half the neighborhood during the Depression, even when she couldn't afford to. Said an empty stomach was the only real enemy worth fighting. Daddy makes it every Sunday," Emma added, "even when Mommy was sick and couldn't eat it. He said the smell would make her happy." They ate at Victoria's massive dining table that had never hosted a real meal, Emma chattering about school, Marcus occasionally redirecting her when she got too personal, Victoria listening like someone trying to remember a language they'd forgotten. "This is nice," Emma announced, sauce on her chin. "Like a real family dinner." The word family landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. Victoria looked at Marcus, who was looking at his plate. They were strangers playing house, brought together by violence and circumstance. But Emma was right. It did feel like something. Maybe not family, not yet, but the ghost of what family could be. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Victoria her drawings, spreading them across the pristine living room floor like she was claiming territory. Victoria sat on the floor, probably a first for the Armani suit, and listened as Emma explained each one. "This is Mommy as an angel. See her wings? And this is Daddy fixing the sun because it was too hot. And this is our apartment, but I drew it bigger because in dreams, things can be as big as you want." "What about this one?" Victoria asked, holding up a recent drawing. "That's from today. It's you and Daddy and me at the grocery store. See, we're all holding hands." Marcus looked at the drawing. Emma had captured something he hadn't even realized had happened. In the cereal aisle, when Emma had grabbed both their hands to drag them toward the Lucky Charms, they'd formed a chain. 3 people connected by a child's insistence that sugar cereals were vegetables if they had green clovers. "You should keep it," Emma said to Victoria. "For your refrigerator. Everyone needs drawings on their refrigerator." Victoria's refrigerator was a gleaming Sub-Zero that had never held anything as pedestrian as a child's drawing. But she took the paper carefully, like it was a stock certificate for a Fortune 500 company, and placed it under a magnetic poetry kit that had probably come with the apartment and never been touched. "It's perfect," she said, and meant it. Emma fell asleep on the couch watching a Disney movie, her head in Marcus's lap, her feet stretched toward Victoria. They sat in the glow of animated magic, 2 adults who'd forgotten how to believe in happy endings, watching a child who still did. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly, "for dinner, for this. You don't need to thank us. We're the ones hiding in your fortress. It's never felt less like a fortress than it does right now." Marcus looked at her across Emma's sleeping form. "How long since you've had people here? Real people, not business associates?" "I don't remember. Maybe never. I bought this place to impress others, but I never wanted them to actually come here. Why? She was quiet for so long, he thought she wouldn't answer. Because then it would be a home, and homes can be lost. My parents' house was foreclosed when Dad's first company failed. We lived in our car for 3 months when I was 7. I promised myself I'd never lose a home again, so I never made one. But you lost something else instead. Yes. They sat with that truth between them, while Emma breathed steadily, safely, surrounded by 2 broken adults who were somehow, inexplicably, becoming less broken in each other's presence. "She's changed you," Victoria said, nodding at Emma. "She saved me," Marcus corrected. "After Sarah died, I wanted to follow her. Not actively, but I wasn't fighting to stay either. Then Emma would need breakfast or help with homework or just need me to be there, and I had to choose. Every day I had to choose her over the grief. And now?" He looked at Victoria, this woman who commanded empires but couldn't mince garlic, who lived in a palace but ate protein bars alone, who'd saved his daughter's drawing like it was precious art. "Now, I'm starting to think there might be more to choose than just survival." The Sterling Tech Charity Gala was held at the Museum of Modern Art, a glittering assemblage of New York's elite pretending to care about underprivileged youth while drinking champagne that cost more than those youth's families made in a month. Victoria had attended hundreds of these events, could navigate them blindfolded, but tonight was different. Tonight, she had Marcus and Emma with her. "I look stupid," Marcus said, tugging at the bow tie of his rented tuxedo. "You look handsome, Daddy." Emma spun in her new dress, a deep blue confection that Victoria had insisted on buying, despite Marcus's protests. "Like James Bond." "James Bond never had grease under his fingernails that wouldn't come out, no matter how hard he scrubbed," Marcus muttered. Victoria studied him in the reflection of the penthouse elevator. The tuxedo transformed him, revealing the MIT graduate beneath the mechanic's coveralls. But it was more than that. It was the way he stood, protective and alert. The way his eyes constantly checked exits and assessed threats. This was a man who'd seen danger and survived it, who'd lost everything and kept going anyway. "You look perfect," she said, meaning it. He met her eyes in the reflection. "You sure about this? Bringing us to your world? The board needs to see I'm not isolated, that I have people." "Is that what we are? Your people?" Before she could answer, Emma piped up, "We're her family. That's what you tell people when they ask, right, Victoria?" Victoria felt her throat tighten. They'd been living in her penthouse for a week now, and somehow Emma had decorated every cold surface with warmth. Drawings on the refrigerator, Mr. Patches on the designer couch, the smell of Marcus's coffee mixing with her expensive beans. Her fortress had become a home without her noticing. "Yes," she said quietly. "That's what I tell them." The museum's great hall was a symphony of wealth and whispered gossip. Victoria felt the eyes tracking them the moment they entered. The billionaire ice queen with a mechanic and his daughter. She could practically hear the social media posts being composed. Miss Sterling. Richard Blackstone, chairman of Sterling Tech's board, materialized like a bad penny. His eyes swept over Marcus and Emma with barely concealed disdain. "I wasn't aware this was a family event." "All charity events are family events, Richard. That's rather the point, supporting families in need." "Of course." His smile was sharp as winter. "And this is?" "Marcus Chen and his daughter Emma. Marcus is consulting on our new safety protocols." "A consultant?" Richard's tone suggested he'd stepped in something unpleasant. "How diverse of you." Emma, who'd been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. "Why do you talk like you're eating lemons?" The question, delivered with perfect innocence, made several nearby guests choke on their champagne. Richard's face went purple. "Children should be seen and not heard," he said coldly. "That's a stupid rule," Emma announced. "If kids didn't talk, how would anyone know we need help?" Marcus placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder, but Victoria noticed he didn't correct her. Instead, he met Richard's glare with steady calm. "She has a point," Marcus said. "Most of the world's problems come from people not listening to those who need help most." "I hardly think a mechanic is qualified to diagnose the world's problems," Richard sneered. You're right, Marcus replied easily. I just fix things, but I've noticed the things that break most often are the ones people think are too good to need maintenance. The threat in his words was subtle, but unmistakable. Richard stepped back, his eyes narrowing. Victoria? A word? He didn't wait for an answer, walking toward a corner where 3 other board members waited like vultures. I should go, Victoria said apologetically. We'll be fine, Marcus assured her. Emma wants to see the art anyway. But they weren't fine. As soon as Victoria left, the whispers started. Marcus heard fragments. Gold digger. Using his kid. She's lost her mind. The stock price will tank. Emma heard them too. Her hand found his, squeezing tight. Why are they being mean? She whispered. Because they're scared, Marcus told her. People who've never lost anything are always scared of people who've lost everything. Why? Because we know something they don't. That losing everything isn't the end. It's just change. And change terrifies people who think they have too much to lose. They wandered through the galleries, Emma asking questions about art that Marcus couldn't answer, both of them feeling the weight of eyes and judgment. At the children's activity station, a token gesture to justify the charity aspect, Emma sat down to draw while Marcus watched. She's quite talented, a woman said beside him, Margaret Zhao, according to her name tag, one of the museum's education directors. Unlike the others, her smile seemed genuine. She gets it from her mother, Marcus said automatically, then wondered if that was true. He'd been so focused on survival, he'd never really noticed if Emma had inherited Sarah's artistic eye. Are you and Ms. Sterling? Margaret let the question hang. It's complicated. It always is when billions are involved. She watched Emma draw. I've known Victoria since she was about Emma's age. Her father brought her to these events, dressed her up like a little adult, never let her just be a child. She mentioned something about that. She's different with you two, lighter, more human. Margaret paused. They'll try to destroy that, you know. The board. They prefer their CEOs without hearts. Hearts are unpredictable, bad for stock prices. Before Marcus could respond, a commotion erupted across the hall. Victoria's voice, unusually sharp, carried over the crowd. That is completely unacceptable, Richard. Marcus was moving before he made the conscious decision, Emma right behind him. They found Victoria surrounded by board members, her face flushed with anger. It's a simple motion, Victoria, Richard was saying, his voice poisonously reasonable. A CEO involved with someone so far beneath her station raises questions about judgment. The shareholders deserve reassurance. What motion? Marcus asked quietly. Richard smiled like he'd been waiting for this. A motion requiring Ms. Sterling to undergo a psychological evaluation to determine if her recent associations indicate impaired judgment. You mean me, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. If the shoe fits, a man with significant debt, a history of violence. What violence? Victoria demanded. Didn't you know? Richard produced his phone, showing security footage. Your pet mechanic put 3 men in the hospital 2 years ago. Debt collectors, yes, but the law is the law. Marcus felt the old rage rising, carefully controlled. They came to my daughter's school, threatened to take her if I didn't pay, said foster care might motivate me to find the money faster. As I said, violence. Richard's smile widened. Is this really who you want representing Sterling Tech, even peripherally? What happens when the press gets this footage? Then they'll see a father protecting his child, Victoria said, but Marcus could hear the uncertainty creeping in. They'll see a thug who solves problems with his fists, and they'll wonder what kind of influence he has over you. What access to company secrets? What, Daddy doesn't hurt people unless they try to hurt us first. Emma's voice cut through the adult posturing like a blade through silk. She stood between Marcus and the board members, chin raised, eyes fierce. And Victoria isn't associated with us. She's our friend. Friends don't care about stations or stocks or any of your stupid grown-up stuff. Emma, Marcus started. No, Daddy, they're being bullies, and you taught me to stand up to bullies. She looked directly at Richard. You're scared of my daddy because he's good, and you're not. You're scared of Victoria being happy because happy people are harder to control. How dare you? My mommy died. Emma's voice cracked but didn't break. She died and left us alone and poor and sad. But Daddy never stopped being good. He fixed other people's cars for free when they couldn't pay. He read me stories even when he was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open. He sold everything we had to try to save Mommy, and when he couldn't, he still got up every day to save me. Tears were running down her face now, but she didn't wipe them away. Victoria was alone too. I could tell because she had the same look Daddy gets when he thinks I'm not watching, the lonely look. But now she smiles real smiles, not the fake ones she does for you. And Daddy laughs again. And I have someone who helps with my math homework and doesn't burn the pancakes. She took a shuddering breath. So, if you want to hurt them because they're happy together, then you're not good people. And not good people shouldn't get to make decisions about anything. The silence that followed was deafening. The entire gala had stopped to watch an 8-year-old in a blue dress destroy a board of directors with nothing but truth. Marcus knelt beside his daughter, pulling her into his arms. "It's okay, baby. It's okay." But Emma wasn't done. She looked at Victoria over Marcus's shoulder. "Are you going to let them be mean to us?" Victoria looked at the board members, these men who'd controlled her life for 3 years, who'd second-guessed every decision, who'd tried to shape her into their image of success. Then she looked at Marcus and Emma, a mechanic and a little girl who'd brought more joy to her life in 2 weeks than she'd felt in a decade. "No," she said simply. "I'm not." "Victoria," Richard warned, "think about what you're doing. The shareholders will be thrilled to know their CEO isn't a robot, that she has actual human connections that keep her grounded, that she's not one scandal away from a breakdown because she has people who actually care about her, not her portfolio." She moved to stand beside Marcus and Emma, her hand finding Marcus's shoulder. "It's file your motion, Richard. Request your evaluation. I'll pass with flying colors because for the first time in years, I'm actually sane. I'm not working 20-hour days. I'm not medicating myself to sleep. I'm not one bad quarter away from jumping off my balcony." Several board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd all known about her struggles, had exploited them, used them to control her. "But if you do file that motion," Victoria continued, her voice dropping to CEO cold, "I'll file one of my own, a full audit of board expenses, every dinner, every trip, every consultation fee. I wonder what the shareholders would think about your weekend in Vegas last month, Richard, the one where you investigated potential partnerships at the blackjack table." Richard went pale. "You wouldn't dare. Try me. I've got nothing left to lose except them." She gestured to Marcus and Emma. "And if you threaten them again, I'll burn this whole company down around your ears." The standoff lasted another heartbeat before Richard backed down, his retreat masked as dignified withdrawal. The other board members scattered like roaches when the light comes on. "Can we go home now?" Emma asked, exhausted from her outburst. "Yes," Victoria said, gathering the little girl into her arms. "Let's go home." As they left, Marcus heard the whispers starting again, but they were different now. There was respect mixed with the gossip, admiration with the shock. An 8-year-old had reminded a room full of billionaires what actually mattered. In the limo home, Emma fell asleep with her head on Victoria's lap, her feet in Marcus's. The two adults looked at each other over her small form. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "She shouldn't have had to do that." "She shouldn't have," Victoria agreed. "But I'm glad she did. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us what courage looks like." "What happens now? With the board?" "Now they know I'm willing to fight, that I have something worth fighting for." She touched Emma's hair gently. "That changes everything." "Victoria, I know we're not really family. I know this is temporary, just until the danger passes, but maybe it doesn't have to be," Marcus finished. They looked at each other, two damaged adults who'd found something unexpected in each other's broken pieces. Not love, not yet, but the possibility of it, the hope. Emma stirred, mumbled something about pancakes and superheroes, then settled back into sleep. And in that moment, in the back of a limo driving through the neon night of New York, 3 people who'd been strangers 2 weeks ago felt the first real stirring of what they could become, a family. The morning after the gala, Victoria woke to 37 missed calls and 112 unread emails. Her phone buzzed like an angry wasp as she made coffee in her kitchen. Their kitchen now, she corrected herself, noting Emma's drawings covering the refrigerator and Marcus's coffee mug beside hers in the sink. "Bad news?" Marcus asked from the doorway. He was wearing sweatpants and an old Boeing t-shirt, his hair still messed from sleep, and Victoria thought he looked better than any man in a designer suit ever had. The board called an emergency meeting for noon, and someone leaked the story to the press. She turned her tablet toward him. The headline screamed, "Billion-dollar romance, Sterling Tech CEO's controversial relationship with indebted mechanic." Marcus's jaw tightened as he read. The article was brutal, painting him as an opportunist using his daughter to manipulate a lonely billionaire. There were photos from the gala, Emma's tears carefully framed to look like distress rather than courage. There was even a quote from an anonymous source, suggesting Victoria was being investigated for mental instability. "I should leave," Marcus said quietly. "Take Emma and go back to Brooklyn. This is destroying your reputation." "No." "Victoria." "No." She stood, moving closer to him. "They don't get to win by making us afraid, by making us doubt what we're building here." "What are we building?" Marcus asked, and the question hung between them like a held breath. Before Victoria could answer, Emma padded into the kitchen, Mr. Patches dragging behind her. "Why are you both upset? Did something break? Daddy can fix it." "Just grown-up stuff, princess," Marcus said, but Emma wasn't buying it. She climbed onto a kitchen stool and looked at them both with those two wise eyes. "Is it about the mean people from last night? How did you— I heard you talking, and your phone keeps buzzing, Victoria. That only happens when people are being stupid about something." Victoria couldn't help but laugh. "You're right. People are being very stupid about something. About Daddy? About all of us. They think your daddy and I shouldn't be friends." Emma considered this seriously. "Why?" "Because I have a lot of money, and he doesn't." "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Jenny at school has more lunch money than me, but we're still best friends. Money isn't for making friends. It's for buying groceries and paying rent, and sometimes, if you're really lucky, getting ice cream." "From the mouths of babes," Marcus murmured. Emma looked between them. "Are you going to stop being friends because of stupid people?" "No," Victoria said firmly. "We're not." "Good. Can we have pancakes now? Real ones, not the burned ones Daddy makes." As Marcus pretended to be offended and Emma giggled, Victoria's phone rang. Richard Blackstone's name appeared on the screen. "I have to take this," she said apologetically. "We'll make extra pancakes for you," Emma promised. Victoria stepped onto the balcony, the October morning sharp with approaching winter. "Richard." "Victoria, I'm calling as a courtesy. The board meeting has been moved to 10. We'll be voting on your immediate suspension, pending a full psychological evaluation." "You don't have the votes." "Don't I? Check your email. Security footage from 2 years ago showing Mr. Chen violently assaulting 3 men. Financial records showing his massive debts. A rather interesting report from MIT about why he really left Boeing. Something about selling classified safety protocols to pay for medical treatments." Victoria's blood went cold. "That's not true." "True enough to raise questions, true enough to make shareholders nervous, true enough to destroy both your reputation and his if it goes public." Richard paused, savoring his advantage. "Unless, of course, you make the right choice." "Which is? End this ridiculous association, today, publicly. Issue a statement that you were temporarily affected by the stress of recent events, but have come to your senses. Mr. Chen and his daughter leave immediately, and we all pretend this unfortunate episode never happened. And if I refuse, then I release everything, the footage, the financial records, the Boeing report, which, by the way, suggests Mr. Chen may have contributed to a plane crash in 2018 by selling substandard safety protocols to foreign buyers." "You're lying." "Am I? Can you afford to find out? Can he? Think about his daughter, Victoria. What happens to her when her father is arrested for treason? When he's painted as a man who sold out airline passengers to save his dying wife? Even if it's eventually proven false, the damage will be done. She'll be the daughter of a traitor. Is your little rebellion worth destroying a child's life?" Victoria gripped the balcony railing until her knuckles went white. Through the glass, she could see Marcus flipping pancakes while Emma danced around him, both of them laughing at some private joke. They'd welcomed her into their grief, their healing, their small but perfect world, and now her world was about to destroy theirs. I need time to think. You have 2 hours, 10 a.m., Victoria. Come alone, ready to comply, or watch everything burn. The line went dead. Victoria stood on the balcony, feeling the city 57 floors below, and wondered if this was how her father had felt the day before his heart attack, trapped between impossible choices, with no good options left. Victoria? Marcus stood in the doorway. Pancakes are ready. She turned, and he must have seen something in her face because his expression immediately shifted to concern. What did he say? Nothing that matters. Don't lie to me, not after everything. She looked at him, this good man who'd saved her life, who'd opened his home and heart despite having every reason to keep them locked. They have something on you, about Boeing, about why you really left. Marcus went very still. What exactly do they have? Something about selling classified safety protocols to pay for Sarah's treatment. For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. Then he laughed, bitter and short. Of course they do. The truth is always more complicated than the lie, isn't it? What's the truth? I did access classified protocols, but I didn't sell them. I gave them away to a nonprofit that provides free safety consulting to airlines in developing countries, places where people die because their planes don't meet basic safety standards. I thought if I couldn't save Sarah, maybe I could save someone else's wife, someone else's mother. But that's still illegal, still a breach of contract, still enough to destroy me if spun the right way. He looked through the glass at Emma, who was carefully arranging pancakes on 3 plates. They're going to use me to control you, only if we let them. Victoria, be realistic. They hold all the cards. No, they hold fear. There's a difference. She moved closer to him. Marcus, I need to tell you something about why my father really died. Marcus waited. He didn't have a heart attack from natural causes. He had it during a board meeting where they were forcing him out. They'd found irregularities in his personal accounts, money he'd been sending to support a woman and child in the Philippines. His first family, from before he met my mother, he'd been supporting them for 30 years, making sure the child got an education, had opportunities. That's not illegal. No, but it was leverage. They threatened to expose it, to paint him as a cheater, a liar, to destroy the reputation he'd spent his whole life building. The stress triggered the heart attack. He died at that table, surrounded by men who stepped over his body to divide up his empire. Jesus, Victoria! I've spent 3 years trying to be strong enough that they couldn't do to me what they did to him. But I was wrong. Strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about having something worth being vulnerable for. She took his hands, rough and scarred and gentle. I can't let them use you and Emma against me, but I also can't lose you to save you. So, we fight. Together, or we fall together. But either way, together. Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Mr. Chen? This is David Park from the New York Times. I'm calling about some documents we've received regarding your time at Boeing. Would you care to comment on allegations that you sold classified? Marcus hung up. Immediately it rang again. Different number. They've already started, he said. Victoria's phone was ringing too. Her publicist, her lawyer, her CFO, all at once. Daddy? Emma stood in the doorway, small and worried. The pancakes are getting cold. Marcus knelt beside her. Baby, remember when we talked about how sometimes people try to hurt us because they're scared? Emma nodded solemnly. Well, some scared people are trying to hurt us right now. They're saying bad things about Daddy that aren't true. Why? Because they don't want Victoria to be our friend. Emma's face darkened with a fury that would have been comical if it wasn't so pure. That's mean. Yes, it is. What do we do when people are mean? We stand up to them, Emma said firmly. Then, more quietly, but what if they're too big? What if we can't? Victoria knelt beside Marcus, completing the circle around Emma. Then we stand up anyway, because that's what brave people do. They stand up even when they're scared. Are you scared? Emma asked Victoria. Terrified. Me too, Emma admitted. But Mama used to say being scared just means something matters. And you both matter. Marcus pulled Emma into a hug, and Victoria found herself pulled in too. the three of them holding each other in the doorway while phones rang and the world tried to tear them apart. "I have to go to the board meeting," Victoria said finally. "But I'm not going alone. You're both coming with me." "Victoria, that's not strategic, professional, appropriate. I don't care anymore. I've played by their rules for 3 years, and all it got me was loneliness and sleeping pills. Time to change the game." She stood, and there was something different about her now. Not the Ice Queen CEO, but not the vulnerable woman either. Something new, forged in the crucible of this morning's impossible choices. "Emma, wear your blue dress, the one from last night. Marcus, forget the tuxedo. Wear your work clothes." "Why?" "Because we're done pretending to be something we're not. If they want to fight, they'll get one. But we fight as ourselves." An hour later, they stood outside the Sterling Tech boardroom. Through the glass, Victoria could see the board assembled, Richard at the head of the table, like a vulture presiding over a feast. Her entire legal team was there, as was someone she didn't recognize. A woman with sharp features and a predator's smile. "That's Dr. Elizabeth Cray," her assistant whispered, "psychiatric evaluator. She's already filed a preliminary report suggesting you're showing signs of acute stress disorder and compromised judgment." "Based on what evaluation?" "Based on observed behavior and public actions." Apparently, attending a gala with Mr. Chen was enough evidence. Victoria felt Marcus tense beside her, but Emma squeezed both their hands. "Remember," the little girl whispered, "we're brave." Victoria pushed open the boardroom door. "Gentlemen, Dr. Cray, I believe you called this meeting to discuss my mental fitness." "Victoria," Richard stood, false concern dripping from every word. "We're simply worried about you. This recent behavior, you mean having friends, caring about people, not working myself into an early grave like my father? Your father was a great man. My father was a lonely man who died surrounded by sharks pretending to be colleagues. I won't make the same mistake." She pulled out her phone, connecting it to the boardroom screen. "Since you're so concerned about transparency and mental fitness, let's be transparent." The screen lit up with documents, financial records, email chains, security footage. "Richard, this is you at the Vegas casino, losing $400,000 of company money. James, here you are, approving a contract with your brother-in-law's firm at 3 times market rate. David, this is particularly interesting. You billing the company for therapy sessions that were actually golf games. How dare you? I dare because you dared first. You want to evaluate my mental fitness? Let's evaluate everyone's. Let's talk about James's cocaine habit, or David's 3 mistresses, or Richard's interesting relationship with that pharmaceutical company that keeps winning our insurance contracts." The board members were on their feet, shouting, but Victoria wasn't done. "You called the press? So did I. Right now, reporters are receiving copies of every dirty secret this board has tried to hide. Every kickback, every bribe, every abuse of power. You wanted to destroy Marcus's reputation to control me? Congratulations. You've just destroyed your own." "You're finished," Richard snarled. "No company will ever hire you again." "Good. I'm tired of working for people who think money is more important than humanity." She turned to Dr. Cray. "As for my psychological evaluation, I'll save you the trouble. Yes, I'm stressed. Yes, I'm making choices that don't maximize shareholder value. Yes, I'm prioritizing personal relationships over professional advancement. You know what that makes me? Human, healthy, whole, for the first time in my adult life." Marcus stepped forward. "You want to know what she's been doing for the past 2 weeks? She's been teaching my daughter math, reading her bedtime stories, learning to cook, laughing. When's the last time any of you laughed without calculating its impact on your portfolio?" "Mr. Chen," Richard sneered, "you're hardly qualified." "You're right. I'm not qualified to run a Fortune 500 company, but I am qualified to recognize a good person when I see one. And Victoria Sterling is the best person in this room. She's worth more than all your stock options combined." "That's very touching," Dr. Cray interjected. "But emotional decision-making is precisely the concern." "I have something to say." Everyone turned to look at Emma, who had climbed onto a chair to be seen. "You're all mean. You're mean to Victoria because she's nice to us. You're mean to my daddy because he doesn't have money. You're mean because being mean makes you feel important. But you know what? My mommy died, and we're still here. We lost everything, and we're still here. You can be as mean as you want, but we'll still be here, because we have each other, and that's more than any of you have. She climbed down and walked over to Victoria and Marcus, taking their hands. We're leaving now. You can keep being mean to each other. We're going home to eat pancakes. The boardroom was silent as they walked out. But just before the door closed, Victoria heard Richard's voice, smaller now, defeated. The vote of no confidence is withdrawn. They didn't stop walking. Not until they were out of the building, standing on the street where, 2 weeks ago, Victoria's Bentley had broken down and Marcus had said 4 words that changed everything. I can fix it. You know what this means, Victoria said. The story's out there now. Everyone will know about Boeing, about the debt, about us. Let them know, Marcus said. The truth isn't as scary as the secret. What happens now? Emma asked. Victoria looked at Marcus, this man who'd lost everything and survived, who'd chosen love over bitterness, who'd saved her in more ways than one. Now we go home, she said, and figure out what comes next, together. As they walked toward the parking garage, Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. Board an emergency session. Richard Blackstone resigned, 3 others following. You're still CEO if you want it. She showed it to Marcus. What do you want? He asked. She thought about it. The power, the prestige, the billion-dollar decisions. Then she looked at Emma, skipping ahead, at Marcus's hand in hers, at the life they were building from the ashes of their old ones. I want pancakes, she said. The rest can wait. The call came at 3 a.m, 2 weeks after the boardroom confrontation. Marcus jerked awake to his phone, vibrating on the nightstand, the caller ID showing Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. Mr. Chen, this is Dr. Rodriguez. Your daughter was brought in by ambulance. There's been an accident. The world tilted. Marcus was on his feet before his brain fully processed the words, pulling on yesterday's clothes with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. What happened? Is she okay? She's stable, but you need to come immediately. Victoria was already up, having heard his side of the conversation. She didn't ask questions, just grabbed her keys and drove, breaking every traffic law between Manhattan and Brooklyn, while Marcus sat frozen in the passenger seat. She was at a sleepover, he said, the words feeling unreal. At Jenny's house. She was safe. She was supposed to be safe. Victoria reached over and took his hand. She's going to be okay. You don't know that. No, she admitted. But I know Emma. She's the strongest person I've ever met. She gets that from you. The hospital emergency room was fluorescent bright and antiseptic cold. Marcus ran to the desk, Victoria right behind him. Emma Chen, my daughter. Someone called. Room 314. The doctor will meet you there. They found Emma unconscious, looking impossibly small in the hospital bed. Machines beeped around her, IV lines running into her thin arms, a bandage wrapped around her head. Jenny's mother, Mrs. Park, was sitting beside the bed, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, I'm so sorry. They were playing on the fire escape. I told them not to, but you know how kids are. Emma fell, 2 stories. She hit her head on the concrete. Marcus couldn't speak. He moved to Emma's bedside, taking her hand, so small and still in his. Dr. Rodriguez entered, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes. Mr. Chen, I'm the neurologist on call. Emma has a severe concussion and a small subdural hematoma, bleeding in the brain. We're monitoring it closely. If it doesn't resolve on its own, she'll need surgery. When will she wake up? We've induced a coma to reduce brain swelling. It could be hours or days. We just don't know. Marcus sank into the chair beside Emma's bed, his world narrowing to the rise and fall of her chest, the steady beep of the heart monitor. This was his nightmare made real, losing the one thing he couldn't bear to lose. This is my fault, he whispered. I should have been there. Should have kept her safe. Marcus? Victoria started. No, don't. I let my guard down. Got distracted by board meetings and galas and playing house. And Emma paid the price. Victoria wanted to argue, but she recognized the self-flagellation of guilt. She'd done it herself after her father died. Instead, she pulled up another chair and sat on Emma's other side. Then I'll sit here with you until she wakes up. You have a company to run. No, I have a family to support. They sat in silence as dawn broke over Brooklyn, painting the hospital room in pale gold light. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting medications. Marcus never let go of Emma's hand. By noon, the media had found them. Billionaire CEO vigil at bedside of mechanic's daughter ran on every news site. Photographers clustered outside the hospital, trying to get shots through windows. Victoria's phone rang constantly until she turned it off. "I'm making this worse," she said. "The attention, the circus. Emma doesn't need this." "Emma needs you here," Marcus said, not looking away from his daughter. "I need you here." But the universe seemed determined to test them. Victoria's assistant appeared, looking harried. "Ms. Sterling, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been an emergency. The FBI is at the office. Something about corporate espionage and the leaked board documents. I don't care. They have a warrant for your arrest. Obstruction of justice, they're saying. If you don't come now, then they can arrest me here." "Victoria," Marcus said quietly. "Go. Emma wouldn't want you in jail because of us." "I'm not leaving." "Yes, you are." His voice was firm now. "Because if Emma wakes up and finds out Victoria went to jail for her, she'll never forgive herself. And I can't have her carrying that guilt." Victoria wanted to fight, but she saw the logic. The cruel, horrible logic. "I'll be back as soon as I can." "I know." She kissed Emma's forehead, then, impulsively, kissed Marcus's cheek. "Take care of our girl." Our girl. The words hung in the air after she left. Marcus sat alone with Emma as afternoon became evening. Her condition didn't change, stable but unconscious, balanced on a knife's edge between recovery and crisis. He talked to her, telling stories about her mother, about the garage, about Victoria. "You were right, baby. She was sad like us, but somehow, the three of us together were less sad. That's mathematics even I can understand." His phone rang. "Victoria. They're holding me for questioning. My lawyers are fighting it, but it could be days. Marcus, there's something else. Damian Cross, he made bail this morning. My security says he's disappeared." Marcus felt ice in his veins. Cross, the man who'd threatened Emma in the note, who'd shot up the garage, was free. "I'll send security to the hospital." "No, that'll just draw more attention. I'll handle it." "Marcus, please, don't try to be a hero." "I'm not trying to be anything except Emma's father." After he hung up, Marcus checked the window. The parking lot was full of news vans now. Anyone could hide in that chaos. Anyone could get close. He called Jerome, his old friend from the neighborhood. "I need a favor. That thing we don't talk about, I need it." "You sure about that, brother?" "Someone threatened Emma. She's hurt, and he's out there. Say no more. I'll be there in an hour." Jerome arrived with a paper bag that he slipped to Marcus without a word. Inside was the Glock Marcus had trained with years ago, the one Jerome had kept safe when Marcus had been afraid he might use it on himself after Sarah died. "You good?" Jerome asked. "No, but I'm ready." Night fell. The hospital grew quiet except for the mechanical sounds of life support. Marcus dozed fitfully in the chair, one hand on Emma, the other on the gun in his jacket. He woke to a subtle change in the room's atmosphere. Someone was there. Damian Cross stood in the doorway, well-dressed and smiling, like this was a social visit. "Mr. Chen, I heard about your daughter's accident. How unfortunate." Marcus's hand tightened on the gun, but didn't draw it. Not in the hospital. Not with Emma right there. "Get out. I'm just here to make you an offer. You leave Victoria, take your daughter, disappear. I'll pay off all your debts, set you up with a new identity, new life. Emma gets the best medical care money can buy. No, don't be stupid. Victoria's going down for those leaked documents. She'll be in federal prison within the week. Her company's stock is tanking. She's radioactive. But you and Emma don't have to burn with her." The answer's still no. Cross moved closer, and Marcus stood, positioning himself between the man and Emma's bed. "You know, it's funny," Cross said conversationally. "Fire escapes in these old Brooklyn buildings are so dangerous. Rusted bolts, weak railings. Sometimes they just give way, especially if someone helps them along." The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. I had nothing to do with your daughter's accident, but accidents happen all the time, don't they? Especially to people who don't know when to walk away." Marcus had the gun out before he consciously decided to draw it, pressed against Cross's ribs where the security cameras couldn't see. "If you come near my daughter again, I'll kill you." Cross smiled. No, you won't. Because you're a good man. Good men don't kill. That's what makes them weak. He stepped back, hands raised mockingly. Think about my offer. Your daughter's life for your cooperation. Simple transaction. After he left, Marcus stood shaking, the gun heavy in his hand. He wanted to chase after Cross, to end the threat permanently. But Emma's monitors beeped steadily, reminding him where he belonged. His phone buzzed. Victoria, texting from Federal Holding. Lawyer says 48 more hours minimum. Please tell Emma I love her. Marcus looked at his unconscious daughter, at the machines keeping track of her fragile life, at the world that seemed determined to tear apart the small family they had built. He texted back, she knows. The next morning brought bad news. Emma's brain bleed had worsened. She needed surgery immediately. There are risks, Dr. Rodriguez explained. She could have memory loss, personality changes, motor function issues, or she might be perfectly fine. We won't know until she wakes up. If she wakes up, Marcus said. When? We're going to do everything possible. Marcus signed the consent forms with a trembling hand. As they wheeled Emma to surgery, he kissed her forehead. Come back to me, baby. Please come back. The surgery took 6 hours. Marcus paced the waiting room, Jerome beside him, neither man speaking. The news was playing on the TV, Victoria being led into federal court in handcuffs, Sterling Tech stock crashing, speculation about the mechanic who destroyed a billionaire. Turn that off, Jerome said to a passing nurse. She did, but the damage was done. Marcus saw himself on the screen, painted as a predator who'd used his daughter to ensnare a vulnerable woman. He wondered if Emma would see it someday, if she'd believe it. She won't, Jerome said, reading his mind. That girl knows exactly who you are. You're her hero. Nothing changes that. Dr. Rodriguez appeared, looking exhausted but smiling. The surgery went well. We stopped the bleeding and relieved the pressure. Now we wait for her to wake up. How long? Could be hours, could be days. But her brain activity is strong. She's fighting. Marcus returned to Emma's room, now even more crowded with machines. She looked different, smaller somehow, with part of her head shaved and bandaged. But she was alive. That was all that mattered. His phone rang. Victoria's lawyer. Mr. Chen, I'm calling on Victoria's behalf. She wanted you to know she's being released tomorrow. All charges dropped. Apparently, someone provided evidence that the board was planning to frame her for embezzlement. The leak was actually whistleblowing. Who provided the evidence? Anonymous source. But Victoria wanted you to know she'll be there as soon as she's processed out. Tell her to be careful. Cross is out there, and he's already made threats. We'll have security on her the moment she's released. Marcus hung up and took Emma's hand again. You hear that, baby? Victoria's coming home. We just need you to wake up so we can all be together again. Emma's fingers twitched, just slightly, but Marcus felt it. Emma, can you hear me? Her eyes moved beneath closed lids. Her breathing changed, less mechanical, more natural. That's it, princess. Come back to us. Slowly, painfully, Emma's eyes opened. She looked confused, disoriented, but alive. Gloriously alive. Daddy? Her voice was tiny, hoarse. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. My head hurts. I know. You had an accident, but you're going to be okay. Emma's eyes searched the room. Where's Victoria? She's coming. She'll be here soon. Did I miss pancakes? Marcus laughed through his tears. We'll make you all the pancakes you want. Emma smiled weakly, then her expression turned serious. Daddy, the man on the fire escape. He said to tell you something. Marcus's blood went cold. What man, baby? The one who loosened the bolts. He said to tell you that Victoria can't protect us. That money can't fix everything. The heart monitor spiked as Marcus's rage threatened to overwhelm him. Cross hadn't just threatened Emma. He'd tried to kill her. And he'd made sure she knew it. It's okay, Marcus said, forcing calm into his voice. He can't hurt you anymore. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. Cross was out there, Victoria was vulnerable, and Emma would never be safe as long as that man drew breath. For the first time since Sarah died, Marcus felt the kind of rage that demanded action, Not defensive, not protective, but offensive. The kind that said sometimes being good wasn't enough. Sometimes, to protect what you loved, you had to be willing to become what you hated. He kissed Emma's forehead, gentle as a whisper. Rest now, princess. Daddy's going to fix this. And for the first time, fixing something might mean breaking someone else beyond repair. Just Staub. Marcus sat in the hospital cafeteria at 4 a.m, staring at coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Emma was stable, sleeping peacefully after another round of tests. The doctors were optimistic, no signs of permanent damage, though she'd need months of physical therapy to fully recover. But Marcus couldn't shake the image of her small face as she'd described the man who'd loosened the fire escape bolts. "You look like hell." Victoria stood in the doorway, still wearing the clothes she'd been arrested in 3 days ago, looking exhausted but determined. Marcus was on his feet instantly, crossing the space between them without conscious thought, pulling her into an embrace that said everything words couldn't. "She's okay," he whispered into her hair. "Emma's okay. I know. I went to see her first. She's sleeping." Victoria pulled back to look at him. "Marcus, my lawyers found something. Cross wasn't just making threats. He's been planning this for months. The fire escape, the shooting, even my arrest. It's all part of something bigger." "What do you mean?" Victoria sat down, pulling out a tablet. "Remember when you fixed my Bentley that first day? The electronic failure? That wasn't random. Cross had been testing a device that could remotely disable any car's computer system. He was planning to use it on my entire fleet, cause mass accidents, tank the company, then buy it for pennies. But you weren't in a company car that day." "No. I'd borrowed the Bentley from the fleet for personal use. Pure chance. And then you showed up." She looked at him intently. "You saved me, but more than that, you exposed a vulnerability he didn't know existed. The manual override you used? Cross's engineers hadn't accounted for it. You made him realize his plan was flawed. So he came after me, after Emma. He's trying to eliminate variables. You're a variable, someone who can fix what he breaks." Victoria pulled up another document. "But there's more. Cross has been in contact with someone inside Sterling Tech, someone who's been feeding him information, helping him plan. Marcus, I think someone on my team helped him hurt Emma." The coffee cup crumpled in Marcus's hand, hot liquid spilling across the table. "Who?" "I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they're still inside, still close to us." They sat with that knowledge, the weight of betrayal adding to their exhaustion. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I almost killed him. Cross. When he came to Emma's room, when he admitted what he'd done, I had a gun. I could have ended it. Why didn't you? Because Emma would have known. Somehow, she always knows. And I couldn't bear for her to look at me and see a killer." Victoria took his hand, sticky with spilled coffee. "You're a better man than most." "Am I? Because right now, being good feels like being weak. Being good means playing by rules that men like Cross ignore. Being good means my daughter is lying in a hospital bed because I chose principle over protection." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Marcus's voice cracked. "I've been so focused on being the man Sarah would want me to be, the father Emma could be proud of. But what if being good isn't enough? What if sometimes you have to be willing to be bad to protect what's good?" Victoria squeezed his hand. "Then you become like them, like Cross, like the board members who destroyed my father. You win by becoming what you fought against." "Maybe that's the only way to win." "No." Her voice was firm. "There's another way. We just haven't found it yet." Marcus's phone buzzed. Jerome. "Brother, you need to see the news." They turned on the cafeteria TV to find Cross being interviewed on a morning show, playing the victim, the wrongfully accused businessman, persecuted by a vindictive ex-partner, drawn into a sordid tale of a gold-digging mechanic and a mentally unstable CEO. "The truth is," Cross was saying with practiced sincerity, "I'm concerned for Ms. Sterling's well-being. This relationship with Mr. Chen has clearly affected her judgment, and now, with his daughter's tragic accident, well, one has to wonder if the stress of their inappropriate relationship contributed to the child's neglect." Marcus was moving before Victoria could stop him, heading for the door with murder in his eyes. She caught him in the hallway. No, this is what he wants. You attack him, you become the violent thug he's painting you as. I don't care anymore. Emma cares. Emma needs a father, not a martyr. That stopped him. Marcus slumped against the wall, all the fight draining out of him. Then what do we do? How do we fight someone who has no rules when we're bound by all of them? Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then her eyes lit up with something Marcus hadn't seen before, the strategic mind that had built a billion-dollar company. We don't fight him. We let him destroy himself. How? By giving him exactly what he wants, or making him think we are. She pulled out her phone. I need to make some calls. Can you stay with Emma? Victoria, what are you planning? Trust me. The way I trusted you that day in the tunnel. Can you do that? Marcus looked at her. This woman who'd gone from stranger to family in a matter of weeks, who'd stood by them when it would have been easier to walk away. Yes. Victoria made 17 calls over the next 3 hours, speaking in coded language Marcus didn't fully understand. She transferred money, authorized documents, set things in motion with the precision of a chess master arranging pieces. Meanwhile, Marcus sat with Emma, who was awake now, working through a coloring book with the focused determination of someone relearning fine motor skills. Daddy, my hand keeps shaking. That's normal, baby. The doctor said it would take time for everything to work right again. Will Victoria come back? She's here. She's just handling some grown-up stuff. Emma nodded, then said something that stopped Marcus's heart. The bad man is going to come back, isn't he? What makes you think that? Because bad people always come back until someone stops them. That's how it works in stories. This isn't a story, Em. Isn't it? You met Victoria when her car broke down, like a fairy tale. And now there's a villain trying to keep us apart. She looked at him with those two wise eyes. In stories, the good guys win. But they have to be clever, not just good. Before Marcus could respond, Victoria returned, looking grimly satisfied. It's done. Cross will get a call in the next hour offering him a deal he can't refuse. The chance to buy Sterling Tech for a fraction of its value, all legal, all above board. All he has to do is meet my intermediary tomorrow night at the Brooklyn Warehouse District. That's where he had the garage shot up. Yes, poetic justice, don't you think? Victoria, if you're planning something illegal, nothing illegal, just karma with a little help. She sat beside Emma's bed. How's our artist doing? My hand's weird, but I'm adapting. Emma held up her coloring book, showing a butterfly with slightly wobbly wings. See? Not perfect, but still beautiful. The best things usually aren't perfect, Victoria said, and Marcus heard layers of meaning in the words. That night, while Emma slept, Victoria explained her plan. It was brilliant in its simplicity, ruthless in its execution. Cross would arrive at the warehouse expecting to sign papers that would give him everything. Instead, he'd find the FBI, who'd been tracking his money, laundering through shell companies, information Victoria's forensic accountants had uncovered and anonymously provided. But that's not the real justice, Victoria said. The real justice is that the money he's been using, it's from selling faulty safety equipment to airlines in developing countries. Equipment that's caused 3 crashes in the last 2 years. 47 people dead because Damian Cross wanted a bigger profit margin. Marcus felt sick. Children? 11. They sat with that number. 11 children who would never come home because one man's greed was bigger than his conscience. The FBI will be there tomorrow night. Cross will be arrested. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. And we never have to dirty our hands. How did you find all this? I didn't. My father did. Years ago. He'd been building a case, but he died before he could act on it. I found the files hidden in his personal effects. He'd been waiting for the right moment. And that moment is now? That moment is when someone threatens the people I love. She looked at Marcus. I love you, both of you. I'm not good at saying it, probably won't say it enough. But I love you in a way that terrifies me because I've never had this much to lose. Marcus pulled her close. We love you too. Emma's been drawing pictures of the 3 of us with my family written on top. About that, Victoria pulled out a small box, not a ring box, but something rectangular. This isn't a proposal. We're not there yet. Maybe we never will be in the traditional sense. But this is a promise. Inside were 3 keys on a chain. One is to the penthouse, one is to the garage, and one, she smiled, one is to a house in Queens. Small, nothing fancy, just 3 bedrooms and a backyard. Somewhere between your world and mine, a place that could be ours. Marcus stared at the keys, understanding the symbolism. 3 keys, 3 lives, 3 choices that led to one future. When did you? The day after the gala, when Emma stood up to the board. I realized we needed a space that wasn't yours or mine, but ours. Somewhere Emma could have a real childhood. Somewhere you could work on cars without worrying about rent. Somewhere I could learn to be human again. Victoria, you don't have to answer now. Just think about it. After tomorrow, after Cross is gone, after Emma's recovered, think about what you want, what we want. The next morning, Emma was well enough to sit up and eat solid food. She was halfway through her Jell-O when she looked at both adults and said, "So, are we going to live together now?" "What makes you think that?" Marcus asked. "Victoria keeps looking at you the way Mommy used to, and you look at her like she hung the moon. Plus, she bought us a house." Victoria choked on her coffee. "How did you—" "I was pretending to sleep when you talked about it. I'm 8, not deaf." Marcus laughed, really laughed, for the first time since Emma's accident. "What do you think about it?" he asked his daughter. Emma considered seriously. "I think Mommy would like Victoria. She's smart and kind, and she doesn't try to replace Mommy. She's just additional." "Additional?" "Like when you add numbers, you don't replace the first number. You add to it to make something bigger." Emma reached for both their hands. "We were 2, now we're 3. That's not replacing, that's growing." Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought. That evening, while Victoria was at the warehouse district with the FBI, Marcus sat with Emma watching the news. The breaking story showed Cross being led away in handcuffs, charged with money laundering, fraud, and 47 counts of negligent homicide. "Is he the one who hurt me?" Emma asked quietly. "Yes." "Is he going away forever?" "Probably." Emma nodded, then asked the question Marcus had been dreading. "Did Victoria do something bad to stop him?" "No, baby. She did something smart. She found out about bad things he'd already done and made sure he got caught. So she protected us without becoming bad herself?" "Exactly." Emma smiled. "Mommy would definitely like her." When Victoria returned, exhausted but victorious, she found Marcus and Emma building a blanket fort in the hospital room. Without hesitation, she crawled inside, designer suit and all. "Room for one more?" "Always," Emma said, "but you have to know the password." "What's the password?" Emma looked at Marcus, who nodded. "Family," Emma said. "The password is family." Victoria's eyes filled with tears as she said the word, and for the first time since they'd met, Marcus saw her truly smile, not the practiced CEO smile or the polite society smile, but the real thing, unguarded, imperfect, beautiful. "Family," Victoria repeated, and crawled into their imperfect, perfect fort. 3 months had passed since Cross's arrest. Emma was home from the hospital, walking with only a slight limp that the doctors said would fade with time. They'd moved into the house in Queens, a modest brick colonial with a garage big enough for Marcus's work and a backyard where Emma could play. Victoria split her time between the Sterling Tech office and home, having restructured her schedule to never miss dinner with what she now freely called her family. It was a Thursday morning when everything changed again. Marcus was under a Honda Civic when he heard car doors slamming outside, too many for customers. He rolled out to find 6 FBI agents entering his garage, weapons drawn. "Marcus Chen, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit corporate espionage and theft of classified materials." "What? That's impossible." They cuffed him before he could finish, reading him his rights while his mind reeled. Through the garage window, he could see more agents at the house. Emma was at school, thank God, but Victoria... "Where's Victoria? What have you done?" "Miss Sterling is also being detained for questioning." They put him in a black SUV, and the last thing Marcus saw was old Mrs. Rodriguez from next door, watching with her hand over her mouth. At the federal building, they separated him from Victoria, putting him in an interrogation room that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. For 3 hours, he sat alone, running through possibilities. Then Agent Sarah Kim entered. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, carrying a file thick enough to be a novel. Mr. Chen, do you know why you're here? No, and I want a lawyer. That's your right, but you might want to hear what we have first. She opened the file, spreading out documents. 3 months ago, someone leaked classified Boeing safety protocols to foreign buyers. Protocols you had access to. Protocols that were sold for exactly the amount needed to pay off your wife's medical debt. I didn't. The money trail leads directly to accounts linked to you. The technical knowledge required matches your expertise exactly. And we have a witness. Who? She pulled out a photograph. Marcus's blood went cold. It was David Park, Victoria's chief technology officer. The man who'd been with the company since her father's time. The man who'd had access to everything. Mr. Park came to us yesterday with evidence that you and Ms. Sterling orchestrated the theft together, that she used her position to help you access and sell the information, splitting the profits. That's insane. David's lying. Is he? Because we also have this. Another document. A contract between you and Ms. Sterling, dated 2 weeks after you met, transferring significant funds to offshore accounts. Accounts that were then used to pay off your debts. Marcus stared at the contract. It looked real. His signature, Victoria's, even a notary seal. But it was fake. It had to be. I want my lawyer, now. They gave him his phone call, but instead of calling a lawyer, he called Jerome. They got me. Frame job, David Park, Emma. I've got Emma, Jerome said immediately. Picked her up from school the minute I heard. She's safe. Victoria? No word, but Marcus. Park's been moving money, big money. My friend at the bank says he's been liquidating everything. He's running. Or finishing something. Brother, this feels like a final move, not an opening. Marcus hung up and faced Agent Kim. David Park is your mole. He's been working with Cross from the beginning. Mr. Park is a respected executive who came forward the day after Cross got life without parole. Think about the timing. Cross is finished, so Park makes his move. He gets rid of Victoria and me, takes over Sterling Tech, and walks away with billions. Agent Kim's expression didn't change. That's an interesting theory. Do you have proof? Give me 24 hours. You're under arrest. Then arrest me, but give Victoria 24 hours. If Park's telling the truth, he has nothing to fear. If he's lying, he's already running. She studied him for a long moment. You get one phone call to a lawyer. What you do with that call is your business. Marcus called Victoria's personal cell, praying she'd answer. She did on the first ring. Marcus, are you okay? They won't let me. Listen carefully. David Park. He's the inside man. He's been playing us from the beginning. Jerome says he's moving money. David, but he's been with the company for... Exactly. Long enough to know everything, to access everything, to fake everything. Victoria, I need to stop him. Her voice went cold, corporate. Agent Kim, if you're listening to this call, I'm invoking my rights as CEO to conduct an internal investigation. I'll have proof of David Park's crimes within 6 hours. Marcus heard arguing in the background, then Victoria again. They're giving me 6 hours. Supervised release. Marcus, trust me. Always. The line went dead. Marcus spent the next 6 hours in a holding cell, pacing, praying, remembering Sarah's voice telling him to have faith, even when evidence suggested otherwise. At hour 5, Agent Kim returned. You might want to see this. She led him to an observation room where he could see Victoria in the interrogation room, surrounded by laptops and documents. With her were 2 people Marcus didn't recognize. A young black woman with elaborate braids and an older Asian man in a rumpled suit. Tanya Washington, ethical hacker, Kim explained. And James Liu, former SEC investigator. Your girlfriend apparently keeps interesting people on retainer. On the screen, Victoria was directing them like a conductor with an orchestra. Data flowed across screens, financial records, emails, security footage. There, Tanya said suddenly. Park's been using a ghost protocol to mirror Ms. Sterling's digital signature. Every document he's leaked, he's made it look like it came from her. And here, Liu added, he's been shorting Sterling Tech stock for months. He knew exactly when each crisis would hit because he was causing them. More than that, Victoria said, her voice deadly calm. He's the one who gave Cross the garage location. who told him about the fire escape at Jenny's building. He's been feeding Cross information all along, playing both sides. Can you prove it? Kim asked through the speaker. Already did. Victoria turned one laptop toward the camera. This is Park's real email server. Tanya found it hidden behind 7 proxies. Every communication with Cross, every forged document, every crime. Where is he now? According to his credit card, he booked a flight to the Caymans, leaves in 90 minutes. Kim was already on her phone, barking orders. Within minutes, Marcus could hear sirens screaming toward the airport. They released Marcus, with apologies that felt hollow after the day's ordeal. Victoria met him in the federal building lobby, and they held each other like survivors of a shipwreck. Emma? Jerome has her. She's safe. How did you know? About Park? Victoria pulled back to look at him. I didn't. Not until you called. But then I remembered something my father wrote in his journal. The greatest betrayals come from those we never suspect, because they've been loyal too long. Park was too perfect, too helpful, too there. They picked up Emma from Jerome's apartment, where she was teaching him to play chess with a set made from bottle caps and screws. Did you catch the bad man? Emma asked. Which one? Marcus said, trying to keep his voice light. The one who pretended to be good. That's the worst kind. Once again, his daughter's wisdom stopped him cold. Yes, baby, we caught him. That night, in their Queens home, they watched the news coverage of Park's arrest at JFK Airport. He'd had 3 fake passports and $14 million in bearer bonds in his carry-on. He was going to disappear, Victoria said. Leave us to take the fall for everything. But he didn't count on you. He didn't count on us, she corrected. Park thought we were a weakness he could exploit. A mechanic and a CEO, too different to really trust each other. He didn't understand that our differences make us stronger. Emma wandered in, dragging Mr. Patches. I can't sleep. Bad dreams? Marcus asked. No, thinking dreams. What about? About how we're like a car engine. Victoria smiled. How's that? Well, Daddy explained that engines need different parts to work. Pistons and valves and spark plugs and stuff. They're all different, but they work together to make the car go. Emma climbed onto the couch between them. We're like that. Victoria's the computer part that makes everything smart. Daddy's the strong parts that do the hard work. And you're the spark, Marcus said, kissing her head. Without you, none of it works. So we're an engine? We're a family, Victoria said, which is better than any engine. Emma considered this. Can families have dogs? Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances over her head. We'll talk about it, they said in unison, then laughed at their synchronization. Later, after Emma was asleep, Marcus and Victoria sat on the back porch, watching the stars that were barely visible through New York's light pollution. Park's going to prison, Victoria said. 25 to life, the lawyers think. Cross is already there. The board's been restructured with people I actually trust. The company's stable. So it's over? The crisis is over, she turned to him. But we're just beginning. Marcus pulled out the keys she'd given him months ago in the hospital. He'd carried them every day but hadn't spoken about them. I've been thinking about these, about what they mean. And the penthouse key, that's your world. The garage key, that's mine. But this house key, that's ours. And I think that's the only one that matters. Victoria took the keys, separated the house key from the others, and handed it back. Then let's focus on that one. Victoria Sterling, are you asking me to go steady? Marcus teased. I'm asking you to build something with me. Not a company or a fortune or an empire. Just a life. A good, simple, complicated, messy, beautiful life. With Emma? I can't imagine it without her. She's the best part of both of us. Marcus kissed her then, soft and sure, a promise without words. You know, he said when they pulled apart, I never did fix your Bentley properly, the one from that first day. It's in storage. I couldn't bear to sell it. Bring it by the garage next week. I'll fix it right this time. Some things shouldn't be fixed, Victoria said, leaning against him. Some things are perfect in their imperfection. Like us? Exactly like us? They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd been broken by life and rebuilt by love, watching the night settle over Queens. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Emma's physical therapy, Victoria's board meeting, Marcus's garage expansion, the normal chaos of an abnormal family. But tonight, they were complete. A CEO who'd learned that power meant nothing without people to protect. A mechanic who'd learned that fixing things sometimes meant accepting what couldn't be repaired. A little girl who'd lost one mother and gained another, who'd taught two adults that love wasn't about replacing what was lost, but adding to what remained. In the distance, a siren wailed, New York's lullaby, a reminder that the city never slept, and neither did its dangers. But Marcus felt no fear. They'd faced billionaire sociopaths and corrupt executives, federal investigations and personal tragedies. They'd survived it all. More than survived, they'd thrived. "I love you," Victoria said suddenly. "I'm not good at saying it, but I love you both so much it terrifies me." "Good," Marcus replied. "Love should terrify us. It means we have something worth losing." "And something worth fighting for," Victoria added. From inside came Emma's voice, calling out in half-sleep, "Can you check for monsters?" Marcus and Victoria smiled at each other, then went inside to check for monsters, knowing the real ones had already been defeated. The only things hiding in the shadows now were dust bunnies and the occasional lost toy. They checked anyway, because that's what families do. They check for monsters, they fix what's broken, they hold each other through the storms. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, they get to build something beautiful from the wreckage of what came before. 5 years later. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows of their Queens home, illuminating a scene that would have seemed impossible that day in the Lincoln Tunnel. Victoria stood at the stove, successfully making pancakes, round ones even, while Marcus read the business section aloud. Emma, now 13, sat at the table working on algebra homework, occasionally rolling her eyes at what she called her parents' weird morning ritual. Sterling Tech stock up 12% following the announcement of the new safety protocol system, Marcus read, grinning. The Chen Sterling Protocol, as it's being called, promises to revolutionize automotive safety. "It's just a name," Victoria said, but she was smiling as she flipped a pancake. "It's your names together," Emma pointed out. "That's basically married without the paperwork." Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances. They'd never officially married, never felt the need for external validation of what they'd built. But Emma had been dropping hints lately, the way teenagers do when they think they're being subtle. "Speaking of together," Victoria said, changing the subject, "don't forget tonight." "The dedication ceremony," Marcus nodded. "Jerome's already got his suit pressed. Tonight, they were opening the Sarah Chen Memorial Center, a vocational training facility in Brooklyn, where single parents could learn trades while their children attended free after-school programs. It had taken 3 years to plan and build, funded by Victoria's foundation and staffed by veterans from Marcus's network. "Mom would have loved it," Emma said quietly. They'd learned to navigate these moments, when Sarah's absence became presence, when memory transformed into motivation. Emma kept a photo of Sarah on her dresser, right next to one of the 3 of them at last year's science fair, where Emma had won first place for her project on adaptive automotive systems. She would have, Marcus agreed, especially the daycare center. The doorbell rang, and Emma jumped up. "That's Jenny. We're studying for the math test." Jenny Park entered, having remained Emma's best friend despite everything. Her parents had installed new fire escapes on their building the day after Emma's accident, and Mrs. Park still sent soup whenever Emma was sick. "Hi, Mr. Chen, Miss Sterling," Jenny said, then paused. "Actually, my mom wanted me to ask, are you guys ever going to get married? She has a betting pool with the neighborhood." "Jenny," Emma hissed. "What? My mom's got $50 on this summer." Victoria laughed. "Tell your mom she might want to reconsider her timeline." After the girls disappeared to Emma's room, Marcus moved behind Victoria, wrapping his arms around her waist as she cleaned the breakfast dishes. "You know, we could make Mrs. Park $50 richer." "Marcus Chen, are you proposing while I have my hands in dirty dishwater? Would you prefer I wait until you're under a car at the garage?" She turned in his arms, soap suds on her hands leaving prints on his shirt. "I would prefer we keep doing what we're doing, building our life without needing anyone else's approval or documentation. But Emma's right. We're already married in every way that matters. Maybe it's time we made it official, for her, for us. for Sarah's memory and my father's and everyone who can't be here to see what we've built." Marcus kissed her, soft and sweet, tasting like syrup and promise. "Next month," he said, "at the garage, Jerome can officiate. He got ordained online last year for his nephew's wedding." The garage where we met? Where we really met. Where you stopped being a CEO and I stopped being just a grieving widower, and we started becoming us. That evening, the dedication ceremony drew hundreds. Single parents who'd been helped by Victoria's foundation, veterans who'd trained at Marcus's garage, board members who'd learned to respect Victoria's new approach to business, and neighbors who remembered when Marcus could barely keep his doors open. Richard Blackstone was notably absent, having relocated to Switzerland after a tax evasion conviction. But Margaret Zhao from the museum was there, along with Dr. Rodriguez from the hospital and even Agent Kim, who'd become an unlikely friend after the park investigation. Victoria stood at the podium, no longer the Ice Queen CEO, but someone warmer, realer. "The Sarah Chen Memorial Center isn't just about teaching skills," she said. "It's about recognizing that the greatest strength often comes from the greatest loss. That single parents aren't broken families, they're complete families that happen to be smaller, that needing help isn't weakness, it's humanity." She found Marcus in the crowd, Emma beside him. "Sarah Chen never knew me, but she shaped my life, because she loved a man who would one day save mine, because she raised a daughter who would teach me what family really means, because her loss created a space that, while never filled, could be shared." Marcus was crying now, not hiding it, and Emma held his hand tight. "This center is for everyone who's been told they're not enough, not rich enough, not educated enough, not whole enough. It's proof that broken things can be rebuilt stronger, that endings can become beginnings, that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into." The applause was thunderous, but Victoria only had eyes for Marcus and Emma as they made their way to the stage. Emma took the microphone with the confidence of someone who'd found her voice. "My mom died when I was 4, she said, and the crowd went silent. "I don't remember much about her, but I remember she smelled like vanilla and sang off key and believed everyone deserved a second chance. This center is that second chance for a lot of people." She paused, looking at Marcus and Victoria. "Some people think having a stepmom means forgetting your real mom. But that's not true. Love isn't pie. You don't run out. You just make more. My dad loved my mom, and now he loves Victoria. I love my mom, and now I love Victoria too. Different loves, but both real, both important." Emma cut the ribbon with oversized scissors, and the crowd surged forward to explore the center. Marcus found himself standing with Jerome by the wall of donor names, where Sarah Chen was engraved at the top. "She would be proud," Jerome said, "of all of it, of you." "I hope so. I know so. You took the worst thing that could happen and turned it into this. That's not just fixing things, brother. That's alchemy." Later that night, back home, they found Emma in the backyard with a telescope Victoria had bought her for her birthday. She was tracking something, making notes in a journal. "See anything interesting?" Marcus asked. "The space station. It passes over every 90 minutes. Constant motion, but reliable. Predictable." She looked up at them. "Like you guys." "Constantly in motion?" Victoria asked. "Reliable. Even when everything else changes, you're there, both of you." She went back to her telescope, and Marcus and Victoria sat on the porch steps, watching their daughter explore the universe from their small backyard. "I've been thinking," Victoria said, "about the company, about the future. And I want to step back more, not retire, but restructure. Focus on the foundation, the center. Spend more time here. Maybe have another kid." Marcus turned to stare at her. "Another kid? If you want, if Emma wants a sibling, if our crazy life can handle one more piece of beautiful chaos." "Victoria Sterling, are you asking me to have a baby with you?" "I'm asking if you want to expand our engine, to use Emma's metaphor. Add another spark plug." Marcus laughed, pulling her close. "Ask Emma first. She's the one who'll have to share us." They asked her the next morning over breakfast. Emma considered seriously, then said, "Can I name it?" "Absolutely not," both adults said simultaneously. "Then yes, but I want a sister. Boys are annoying." "We don't get to choose," Marcus started. "I know, but I'm putting in a request with the universe." 9 months later, Emma got her sister. They named her Sarah Victoria Chen Sterling, and she arrived during a thunderstorm that knocked out power to half of Brooklyn. Marcus delivered her in their bedroom, with Dr. Rodriguez talking him through it over FaceTime, Victoria squeezing his hand hard enough to leave bruises, and Emma holding a flashlight like she was illuminating a miracle, which, in a way, she was. The local news picked up the story. Brooklyn baby, born in blackout, to famous family. But the fame wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the moment when Emma held her sister for the first time and whispered, "I'll teach you everything. How to fix cars with Daddy, how to negotiate with Victoria, how to remember Mommy even though you'll never meet her." 2 years passed in a blur of sleepless nights and first words, first steps, first days of daycare at the center they had built. The garage expanded to 3 locations. Sterling Tech became an industry leader in safety technology. Emma got into Brooklyn Tech, the specialized high school she had dreamed of attending. On a quiet Sunday, with 2-year-old Sarah Victoria napping and Emma at Jenny's house, Marcus and Victoria finally got married in the garage, with Jerome officiating and only a handful of friends as witnesses. Victoria wore a sundress she'd bought at Target. Marcus wore his cleanest work shirt. They exchanged rings made from recycled metal, parts from the Bentley that had brought them together. "Do you take this complicated, brilliant, occasionally impossible woman?" Jerome asked Marcus. "Every day for the rest of my life." "Do you take this stubborn, generous, absolutely infuriating man?" Jerome asked Victoria. "I already have. This is just paperwork." They kissed in the garage where their story began, surrounded by cars in various states of repair, metaphors for lives that could be fixed with patience and love. The epilogue came 5 years later, at Emma's high school graduation. She was valedictorian, headed to MIT like her father, but planning to study business like Victoria. A perfect synthesis of both parents. In her graduation speech, she talked about families. "We live in a world that loves origin stories," Emma said from the podium. "Where you came from, who your parents are, what tragedy or triumph shaped you. But origin stories are just beginnings. What matters is what you build after the origin, what you create from the pieces you're given." She found her family in the crowd, Marcus with gray threading through his hair, Victoria with laugh lines she no longer tried to hide, 7-year-old Sarah Victoria on Marcus's shoulders. "My origin story includes death and bankruptcy and loneliness, but my story, my real story, is about what came after, about a mechanic who fixed hearts as well as cars, about a CEO who learned that the best investments aren't in portfolios but in people, about a little girl who refused to let adults forget what really mattered." The crowd laughed, and Emma smiled. "But mostly, it's about the truth that families aren't born, they're built. One shared dinner, one bedtime story, one crisis, one triumph at a time. They're built from broken pieces and held together with something stronger than blood. Choice. The daily choice to show up, to stay, to love, even when it's hard." She looked directly at her parents. "So, thank you to my dad, who taught me that fixing things is noble work. Thank you to Victoria, who taught me that strength and vulnerability can coexist. Thank you to my little sister, who taught me that love multiplies rather than divides. And thank you to my mom, who I never really knew, but who loved my dad enough to make him the kind of man who could save a stranger in a tunnel and change all our lives forever." The applause was deafening, but Emma only saw her family, her beautifully imperfect, impossibly perfect family, crying and laughing and loving her back. Later, at the graduation party in their backyard, the same backyard where Emma had once studied stars and dreamed of bigger things, Marcus found himself standing apart, watching the chaos. Victoria's board members mingling with his garage employees, Jenny's family laughing with Jerome, Emma trying to teach little Sarah Victoria the secret handshake that had become family tradition. "You okay?" Victoria asked, joining him. "Just thinking about time. How that day in the tunnel feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago simultaneously. Regrets? No, not one. You? Only that we didn't find each other sooner. We found each other exactly when we needed to, when we were ready to build something from the broken pieces." Victoria leaned against him, fitting perfectly after all these years. "Marcus? Yeah? We did good, didn't we?" He looked at their daughters, at their friends who'd become family, at the life they'd built from loss and love. "We did better than good. We did something extraordinary. What's that? We proved that happily ever after isn't an ending. It's a choice you make every morning when you wake up and decide to keep building, keep fixing, keep loving, despite all the reasons not to. Emma appeared beside them, diploma in one hand, Sarah Victoria on her hip. "Family photo," she announced. "Jenny's taking it." They arranged themselves, Marcus and Victoria in the center, Emma beside Marcus, Sarah Victoria reaching for everyone at once. As Jenny counted down, Emma whispered something that made them all laugh just as the camera clicked. Years later, that photo would sit on Emma's desk at her own company, a startup that built affordable housing for single-parent families. Sarah Victoria would keep a copy in her dorm at Columbia, where she'd study engineering and poetry with equal passion. Victoria would have it in her office at the foundation that had grown to help thousands. Marcus would keep it at the original garage, now a landmark in Brooklyn, where young mechanics learned that fixing things was about more than just parts and tools. But in that moment, it was just a photo of a family laughing in a backyard in Queens, a mechanic, a CEO, and their daughters. Proof that sometimes the best things in life aren't planned or perfect or easy. They're just real, and that's enough. That's everything.